Hello everybody and welcome to this Young People in Business webinar. It's hosted in collaboration with Napier Event Society and Napier Marketing Society, and we're delighted that so many of you could join us today. It's the first event that we've had this year, and we've got an amazing lineup of speakers, so we're excited to hear from them. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Eilidh and I am one of the founders and the current president of Napier Student Marketing Society. I'll be the host for today and I'll also take you through the Q&A section at the end. We have a fantastic lineup of speakers from a variety of different backgrounds, and they've had such inspiring careers already at such a young age. So I'll just take you through the breakdown of the event for today. So we have 3 speakers and we'll hear from them to start off with, a little talk from them. And after that, we'll have a panel discussion where we have set questions that we'll ask them and sort of have a discussion between everybody. Then following that, it'll be your turn to ask questions. So at the bottom of Zoom, there should be a little Q&A button. So if you have any questions at any point, then feel free to type those in there and we'll answer them at the end of the Q&A. So our first speaker for today is Mahon. He's the founder of Brewgooder, and Brewgooder is a non-profit organisation that specialises in craft beer and uses its profits to bring clean water to those who need it. So they've impacted over 65,000 lives so far through this clean water scheme. So without any further ado, I'll welcome Alan.
Thanks, Eilidh. Hey guys, it's great to be in your kitchens, bedrooms, living rooms, wherever it is you're joining us from. Like Eilidh said, I'm the founder of Brewgooder, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story and kind of the ins and outs, but I'm also going to try and give you a few things to consider as you go on your journey to either start a business, get into business, work with other people. I always love talking to students because my kind of entrepreneurial journey kind of started there, I guess. I went to the University of Glasgow, spent 5 years there, had an amazing time, didn't really do anything other than enjoy my course, drink and go out with my friends and play sport. And then I got to the end of it and I realized that I needed to do something in order to actually have a career, because politics isn't something that you can just walk into if you particularly don't have that much interest in actual politics. So I started applying for lots of different internships and different volunteering programs, and I was lucky enough to be accepted on one. And I went to Nepal, and when I was there, I did what everyone tells you not to do, and that's drink a local water source, and I got sick. And then I came back and got really easy prescription, got better again, went back to Glasgow, started drinking and hanging out with my friends. And then I started working on water in my head and thinking, this is probably something I've been called to get into. And I spent an entire year applying for the Department for International Development's grad scheme. Got to the end of it. They didn't want me and I was a bit lost, like most people that leave uni when they don't know what to do. I'm sure some of you may or may not know that feeling, the lucky ones that don't. It's a pretty scary place to be. And I went and applied for jobs I was underqualified for. And I happened to be at the Edinburgh Festival one night with one of my best mates from uni, his brother, and we were playing ping pong and drinking pints, and he just started up a sandwich shop, and he asked me if I wanted to join, and I was a bit hesitant at the start, but I really needed something to do, and I joined it. And the thing that set this sandwich store apart was that it allowed people to come in and pay forward hot food and drink for homeless people. And some of you might know it from Edinburgh, it's called Social Bite. And I joined there back in the summer of 2013. And basically was thrown at the deep end by somebody who probably at the time didn't know what they were doing. And I would say that Josh still probably doesn't know what he's doing sometimes. But that experience of just being given responsibility to grow a brand, grow a business, experiment and fail was awesome. We did some really cool stuff. We brought Leonardo DiCaprio to Scotland, George Clooney to Scotland. We raised millions of pounds through Sleep in the Park, etc., etc. And whenever I got my checks from there, I used to do something that was alien to me, pay more than £1 for a pint of beer. I went from drinking Tennent's, which is still a great pint, but no longer costs a quid in the student union, I'm sure, and went to drinking £6 or £7 pints of Cloudwater or Brewdog or Beavertown. And I could see that all my friends were super passionate about that. They loved the different styles of beer, the different types of breweries, all sorts of stuff. And I thought this was something that I could really get into. Craft beer was booming at the time, around about 2015. I brewed a small run batch of clean water lager, the first one. 50% of the 1,000 bottle batch exploded in my living room and kitchen. I decided I couldn't really afford to learn how to brew beer if I wanted to do something which I thought was worthwhile with it, which was to help bring other people clean drinking water. So I did something that my 25-year-old self thought made sense, which was to write off to the guys at Brewdog and ask them if they would like to brew the beer for me. Luckily for them, or luckily for me and them probably, they said yes. And on World Water Day, which is March 22nd, 2016, we launched Brewgooder with a £60,000 crowdfund and got our first properly made lagers off the production line a few months later. We then, fast forward 4 years, and we're now in, I think, 2,000 distribution points across the UK. We've got Tesco, we've got Asda, we've got Co-op, we've got lots of different partnerships in the on-trade and lots of different independent stockists as well. We funded over 130 projects for 65,235 people in Malawi. And really, we've been on a massive transition since the start of COVID. When I really think about what Brewgooder is, it was started as a campaign to kind of see if you could do something special with beer, and you can actually put it to good use. And now it's actually a business that employs people. How I've done that, I'm not quite sure. And it's only recently, as we go into trying to grow the business, both in the UK and internationally, that I've kind of actually realized that we're a beer brand that wants to allow people to do incredible things to help other people. So that's kind of where I am, and that's the kind of arc of my career. And if there's things that I wish I had have known when I was your age or in a similar position to you, it was to not put too much pressure on myself that I would be able to succeed at something. When I was younger, I was filled with kind of self-doubt. I sometimes am still kind of riddled with that. But once you start to do stuff in your career, if you've got through uni, if you have an active interest in making the world a better place, whether that's through charitable stuff, purposeful stuff, or actually putting products into the world, you'll find your own way to kind of do that. And I trust that everybody here has the ability to do that and to work hard and to scrap for it in the early years. The other thing I would also say is to not kind of focus too much on the barriers to what you can do. So whenever I was younger, I used to think, well, I would need money to do X, or I would need expertise to do Y. One of the things that I absolutely credit my entire career to, other than having an Irish accent in Scotland when I'm talking over the phone to people, is that I asked for help. Like, I asked for collaborators, for partners, and I was willing to make sure it delivered value to them too. If I didn't ask for help from Brewdog, I don't know where we'd be. Now we've collaborated with almost 200 breweries across the world, and that's all because I said, do you want to help me do this thing? The other thing is to constantly seek out inspiration outside of your category or outside of your industry or outside of your business. And it's great to actually be speaking on the same stage as Tom. This is no reflection on Esme, but I do know Tom and I know his career, and I've seen the amazing stuff that he's done with Fly. And when you're looking at other people who give you inspiration, you're constantly up in your game. And I don't think it's a bad thing that you do compare yourself to other people, as long as you do it in a way that kind of is constructive for you. If other people are pushing the boundaries in their field of work, then you should try and up your game and make sure that you're doing the same thing. So I think that's roughly about 8 or 9 minutes. Hopefully that has kind of inspired some conversation starters, some questions that I'd be delighted to tackle whenever it comes to the panel.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Alan. That was very interesting to hear about your experiences with Brewgooder. So we'll move on to our next speaker. So our next speaker is Esme Rice. So Esme, she's graduated from Durham University with an honours in marketing management and has worked as a marketing manager at a whole list of companies, so such as the Goat Agency and Waste, and she's now employed by Tailify as their marketing director. So I shall welcome Esme now.
Hi. So I guess my experience is slightly less of the entrepreneurial start my own business and more of the sort of work for other people's businesses, which no shame in it. We don't have to all start our own businesses, because that's definitely just not something that I was interested in doing. I wanted to kind of always do marketing for big brands. So at the moment, I am marketing director at Tailify, which is an influence marketing agency. It's a data and psychology based agency. We basically are building AI algorithms to test and network influence to understand how people's networks change their consumer decision making. So my role is that I market the agency itself. There aren't very many people that kind of do what I do just because I've got a specialism in influence marketing and then also marketing the actual agency itself. But I guess I want to take you just through a little bit of kind of how I got started and what kind of led me down this path to end up very luckily where I am now and very grateful to be here. So I have kind of always wanted to be in marketing. I knew I wanted to be in marketing since I was 14. I did my first placement. I was very lucky to kind of be a stubborn child that just decided that was what I wanted to do. So yeah, first placement at 14 within an advertising agency. Knew I wanted to do marketing, geared all my A-levels towards it. Did not get the grades to get into Durham at all. Begged them for 3 months to let me in. And then they let me in by the scrape of my teeth to go do marketing at Durham, which was very, very nice of them to let me in. And then throughout my entire time there, I did placements and I tried to fill up as many of my summers and my weekends with placements, which then led me to be working. I did William Lawrence Advertising, which is a small newspaper advertising agency. I did Social Chain, which is a social media agency, now a media agency, quite one of the biggest ones based up in Manchester. And then I did Saatchi & Saatchi. And kind of one of the things that got me those opportunities when I was in university was I just sent off emails to random people, to so many random people. I sent one to the CEO and MD of London Saatchi & Saatchi because he was a Durham alumni and was like, hey, you're an alumni, I go to Durham, can I come work for you for a bit? And they said yes. And then Social Chain was exactly the same. And then when I was there, I kind of worked quite hard and for some reason they kept me on. And then I went and worked for Social Chain throughout my third year. And I worked with two very talented people. I worked for Nick Crompton, who basically went off to go be the MD for Team 10. So Logan Paul, all of those people, he was their managing director. And then Becca Sharples, who's now at Videos, who is basically all about influence marketing as well. So they introduced me to the world of influence marketing. I then went on to write my dissertation on it because I was fascinated by it, and I just thought it was so interesting. And I used my dissertation as a tool to basically interview everyone that I wanted to work for when I left my degree. I was like, okay, so I want to work for this company, this company, this company. And then I approached them under the guise of my dissertation, interviewed them for it, and then afterwards followed up and was like, hi, I got a first, please can you hire me? Which funnily enough, only one of them listened to me, but that was the one I needed, which was Harry Hugo from Goat. And then I ended up working at Goat, which is an influence marketing agency. It is well, by the time I left, so I joined and it was 22 people and I headed up their marketing for 2 years. And now they are 122 people and the leading influencer marketing agency and Europe's fastest growing agency. So during that time, we had so much fun. We did so many things. We did live stream podcasts from the beach in Cannes. We launched a daily vlog, which is still going now. So if you go back to the Go Agency YouTube channel, you can watch some very embarrassing videos of me from the early days of trying to launch a vlog, and they're still doing it now. I think they just reached like 300 and something episodes, which is crazy. We spoke to journalists, we did the webinars, we did literally like everything, and that was kind of fell under me to kind of lead kind of basically every single different aspect, and make sure that we had a whole plan, because often when you're marketing an agency, you yourself are doing, it's almost like the agency is your client and you have to market and you have to be a little agency yourself, completely internally, independently within the wider business. So that's kind of how I acted within Go. And then I did leave. I went for 6 weeks to go join Waste before then I left again. And I ended up joining my current company because I missed influencer marketing so much. Because Waste is a gaming specialist influencer marketing agency, and then Tailify is a data and psychology agency. So I kind of wanted to have like a real huge amount of like neurodiversity in what I'm doing. So yeah, basically everything that I've been doing up until this point is to try and increase my knowledge of how I work and increase like the different ways that I work with different businesses. So throughout all of that experience that I've just discussed, I've worked client side, I've worked brand side, I've worked for small agencies, independent agencies, big agencies, worked with pure PR, worked with leading the entire marketing strategy. And now I'm kind of working on a completely different way of working, which, because my current company is Swedish and they do things completely differently to how Go does them. At Go, I was very independent. I was working on my own. I literally probably could go a week without speaking to anyone else. Whereas now I am literally on the phone all the time having different conversations, and it's a very different way of working. So that's kind of how I have shaped my career, to try and learn from as many different people as possible, gather as many different experiences as I can, and try and be just a giant sponge and just like learn as much as possible. And that has now landed me in the position that I'm in now, where I'm very lucky to be working with an amazing team. And yeah, we're doing some really cool stuff at the moment. We just hired a guy who's come from Cambridge Analytica to come and work on our algorithms, to work out influence and networks, and basically build huge influencer strategies for big brands like Rosetta Stone, NordVPN, like Monster Drinks and things like that. So some quite cool stuff. I think I'm going to leave probably my advice and stuff till the end part. But I think that's kind of my story so far, and how I got to where I am, and kind of my reasonings behind all of that.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Esme. That was really interesting to hear about. So I'll move on to our third and final speaker for this Young People in Business webinar. So our third speaker is Tom Ketley. Tom is the founder of Fly Events and has worked to organise events such as Fly Open Air. And we're excited to hear about his experiences. So I shall introduce Tom now.
Hi everyone, good to be here. I'm Tom Ketley, founder of Fly. If you don't know who we are a music festival here in Edinburgh. We're actually Scotland's largest youth music brand. We do 2 festivals a year, one at Hopetoun House, which is a stately home just outside the city, and another in Princess Street Gardens, right in the heart of Edinburgh. It's got underneath the castle. It's a great festival location. Now, these festivals are our main revenue streams of our business. However, I actually started Fly as a student, and we still run that student club night, Fly, or at least we did before the pandemic. So I just thought I'd run through all the kind of stuff that I was doing as a student, little sort of entrepreneurial ventures here and there that might inspire you to sort of get involved and do things. Because a lot of the time when I was doing these things, I was thinking, right, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? I can't be a club promoter my whole life. You know, this is a young man's game, all this kind of stuff. And that's then led me into running festivals. But a lot of the businesses that I was trying to start were almost sort of escapes to try and find the next thing. But I'll run through how I started and then go on to the other things after that. So I moved to Edinburgh, needed a job. I was sort of always a bit of a hustler when I was younger. I was a milk boy, getting up at 4 a.m. I was selling things out my locker in school, juggling loads of jobs. and a job came up handing out leaflets at Cav nightclub. So if you're students here, you might know of that. It's a pretty grubby nightclub, the top of Lothian Road. And I would get paid 50p a head for every person that would go in. So I was sort of hustling the streets trying to get people to go in. I was quite good at it, but I quickly realised that the guy that I worked for, who ran the night, was the one that made all the sort of real money. So when I got into second year, that's when I thought, right, I need to try and run my own club night. So I contacted a load of clubs. Obviously, nobody knew who I was. Nobody was giving me any options. In fact, the only place that gave us the okay was actually a gay club called GHQ, Gay Headquarters. They said, look, we're closed during the week, so if you want to run a night, straight, gay, whatever you want, you're more than happy to go ahead and do it. But luckily for us, the drinks were £1. And at the time, it was like 2009, 2010 in Edinburgh, and all the drinks were quite expensive. So that worked. The straight night became the gay club's busiest night for the next 3 years, and I actually started to make some sort of serious money from that. I managed to negotiate a pretty good deal, because I was speaking to the venue saying, well, look, if you're empty, take a risk with me. I'm a student, I don't have much money, but if we fill the venue, can you pay for the DJ? Can you pay for the cash test? Can you pay for the flyer? So I actually had no overhead. So even if one person went in, we would get £5. But in the end, we'd had like 600-700 people going there every week. I was doing really well from that. And then that led me to run sort of more nights. And at the height of my sort of nightclub promo career, I was running like 6 nights a week. I started a t-shirt company with some friends. And a lot of these things worked and didn't work. A lot of them flopped. A lot of them lost quite a bit of money. A lot of them made quite a lot of money. But I was making sort of serious cash at uni that I was able to think, right, do I want to do this? Or, is this really is there a future in this? And I always thought, no, there's not a future in this. My parents were always saying to me, look, this is great that you're making money and we don't have to pay for anything while you're at uni, you're self-sufficient, but can you do this forever? I don't think you can. So knuckle down, son, like get your head in the books. But I was never there. I was never at uni. I was always away doing something else. I felt that I learned a lot more getting involved in these ventures than I ever did from the sort of academic side of things. And in my last year of uni, I was like 22. This is when I had 6 nights a week, and sort of everything I was touching was like turning to gold. So I was way too confident for my own good, thinking, oh, I can do anything. And I had an opportunity to open my own club. And at the time I thought, oh, well, if I own the club, I'll get the bar money as well as the door money. So I'll make double the cash. On paper seems a great deal, but I didn't do like my due diligence on the people that I was partnering up with. I didn't really think about like having fixed solid costs. When you're a promoter, you do something once and it flops, you've only lost out once. But if you have a venue and it's not working, you're stuck in it. So I was just kind of blindsided by being 22 years old and thinking, I'm going to own my own nightclub. This is going to be so cool. All my mates are at uni. They're going to come down. We'll be able to hook my mates up with pints for free. I went in it for the wrong reasons, and it bombed massively. Started to try and fill the cracks by booking big name DJs. If people weren't coming, then I thought the big names would come, but it just didn't work. And the reason it didn't work was that initially I had all these club nights in different venues. So one place is cool on a Monday, cool on a Tuesday, cool on a Wednesday. But when it was all in the same place every single night, people got quite bored of that after about 6 months. So it worked well at the start and then started to slow down. Then I tried to sort of throw cash at it to book big DJs. When the cash ran out, didn't have any big DJs. Nobody wanted to go. Nobody went anymore. I was totally screwed. So I was entering like my last term of uni, and I thought, right, I need to get out of this before like I end up bankrupt. So managed to bail. Like I say, lost a lot of money, but learned a lot from it. And that's one of the things that I think is really important. I think people should try out things and try and be lean as possible, because that's where you really learn and can hone in. And the mistakes from the club actually led me to start Fly. So I was probably basically disillusioned with booking big name DJs that would come and sprinkle a bit of magic for 2 hours and then move on to the next city. I thought, well, may as well listen to my parents. I'll try and get my degree in my last term, and I'll just start another night for a bit of fun, but I'll make it like all about the music, all about the people I believe in, and all about our residents. And that's what's been Fly's biggest success story, because we've built a sort of community around who we believed in, and then it's these residents that have then gone on and become superstar DJs in their own right. So that's how Fly started, and again, it was just a hobby. So I graduated, I became a stockbroker, still ran the club night while I was stockbroking, hated stockbroking, picked the job because I thought all I've been about my whole life is like making money and try and have like a better life. So I should pick a job that's all about money. But I wasn't really interested in trading. So it was just numbers on a screen. And I was thinking, I can't do this for 30 years of my life, like actually not being passionate about something that I'm doing. So I quit stockbroking and I thought, right, I'll just do the club night while I think about what I'm going to do next. So I then got an internship down at Saatchi & Saatchi, which is an ad agency in London. I actually heard you chatting about that previously there. So I thought, okay, I'll go into something creative. And I loved that. But even when I was doing it, I was thinking, this is great, but wouldn't it be great if I was doing something creative like myself? And then, in fact, sorry, before I did the Saatchi & Saatchi, I actually worked as a music journalist as well, but there was like buttons in that, there was like no money. So then I did music journalist, then Saatchi. And then while I was doing that, I just kept thinking, I want to work for myself. There's so much joy in doing your own thing, like so much pleasure in, even if it's something small, just thinking, I've thought about this, I've put it into place, and then it's happened. The joy of that is so high. So I thought, right, you know what, screw this. You only get one life. I don't have a mortgage. I don't have a family. I don't have kids. If I'm going to risk something, I may as well risk it now, because now is the time that I could fail. So straight back up the road to Edinburgh, on the phone to the council, can I have Prince Street Gardens, thinking that they would tell me no, but weirdly enough said yes, and then started the festival. And the festival's been a huge success. We've since, grown it from 2,000 people to 8,000 people a day. We now do 2 a year. We've got a camping festival launching next year and 2 festivals in Amsterdam and Ibiza, obviously pending coronavirus doesn't kill me off. But yeah, so I would say I'll answer any questions you've got after that. But the main thing for me is try, and you learn a lot from your mistakes. So if you can stomach the mistakes and not risk too much, then definitely do that, because I think that's for me what led to our success. Thanks very much.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Tom. And thank you to all our speakers as well that have joined us today. I know you've taken time out your busy schedules to be here, so we really do appreciate it. Just before we move on to our panel discussion, I just want to remind you all that you can put your questions in the Q&A section at the bottom. So just type any questions there, and then after our panel discussion, we shall start asking them. Yes, so if we just load everybody on just now. Great. So our first panel question is, what would you say your biggest challenges are facing young people in business today? So if we start with Esme for that one.
I mean, you mean aside from coronavirus taking away everyone's jobs? Well, to be fair, I got into marketing because my perspective as a 14-year-old was that marketing was quite recession-proof. I don't know why I was thinking about the recession at 14, but that was kind of my thoughts behind it. But I think one of the biggest challenges is getting noticed and making really good first impressions. I feel like a lot of the stuff that I get through, people make one bad first impression and then their emails just come through on that one same chain, and they end up kind of shooting themselves in the foot a lot.
Yeah, that's interesting actually. Do Tom or Alan, do you have anything to add on?
Yeah, I mean, listen, challenges are everywhere you look, whether it's COVID, recessions, whether it's climate change, some are near, some are far, some you can influence, some you can't. Ultimately, I think if you look at it, we are probably in the best position as young people that any generation has ever been in. We're super well connected. We can share creativity really, really quickly. We can start up businesses really, really quickly. We can actually develop and benefit from new technologies. We can tackle enormous things. If you look at the two people I absolutely, well, three people I absolutely admire now. They're not strictly business people as such, but they're campaigners, and they're all under 23 years old. Some are even younger. So one of them's Malala Yousafzai. So, you know, she just had her thing. She was young. She was a woman. Well, she was a girl. She was in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and she was effectively like, you cannot think of a more challenging environment for someone to succeed, right? But she did it. You've got Greta Thunberg. So she is ultimately, what, 16, 17 years old, and she started protesting outside her school on a Friday, and now 2 years later, in fact, to the day, actually, I think it is, people are all around the world in every single country, you know, giving their voice over to strike for climate change. And then somebody who I think has just burst on the scene as someone who has used an opportunity really well is Marcus Rashford. He's a footballer. If he stuck to football, he would just be a good footballer, but he actually said, no, I care about this stuff, and I'm going to use the power of social media to make things happen. So yeah, listen, there's challenges. You could probably write a list as long as your arm. But if you see challenges as something that need to be overcome, then if you can overcome them, and you can develop a way for other people to overcome them in a big way, then you can make massive, massive changes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I agree with what both Alan and Esme were saying there. I actually think that there's loads of opportunities as well, to be honest, that can come out of hard times. So although like coronavirus is definitely the biggest challenge now for anyone in business or anything, but there are opportunities that will come with that. And being young and creative, I think that you just have to put your mind to something, that there's definitely things that other generations won't be thinking about that young people will. So I think that it's don't always look at things negatively. There are positives that can come out of hard times.
Yeah. So our next question that we have is, what skills and attributes do you think are the most important for business graduates of the future? So if we start with you, Tom.
Tenacity, I think. Obviously what I was saying there about I failed a lot, and but the main thing really, and like I had a lot of luck as well on a lot of things, but I think I kind of you almost make your own luck by working super hard, and then you're going to gain more opportunities. So if you're like always banging, chapping at the door, so I think, yeah, tenacity is definitely the main thing for me. I think if a lot of the festivals, majority of them would never have allowed any of our festivals to happen, but I just basically didn't accept no for an answer and just kept phoning them relentlessly. So I think that if you keep knocking, eventually someone will give you a chance.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you'd like to add on, Esme or Alan, at all?
Yeah, I mean, kind of speaking to Esme's point about first impressions, I think the best thing you can cultivate, as well as what Tom said, I think tenacity, and it kind of the flip side of tenacity is not being not afraid to fail at things, because that's when you start to learn. But emotional intelligence for me is the big one, because I don't want to get too dystopian about it, but most jobs in the future will be done by robots. So what do we have that robots don't have? We have emotional intelligence, and that plays into every aspect of life. If you are emotionally intelligent as a marketer, you get to understand what makes people tick and why they buy stuff. If you're a leader, or you want to aspire to be a leader, or even sometimes when you're not the leader yet, but you're working under a leader, emotional intelligence is the best thing you'd have. It allows teams to work and do incredible things. It can be motivating. It also makes you aware that there's probably more to life than just your business and your career. There's your family, there's your friends, etc., etc. So if you can cultivate emotional intelligence as much as possible, and just be empathetic and open to other people's struggles and challenges, then I think that's something that will bleed out of the work environment as well.
just building on that, from like all three of our stories, the one thing that like has been a common thread is that at some point someone has said yes to us when we've reached out, when we've asked for something, we've gone out and we've put ourselves out there and someone has said yes to us and given us that opportunity. It is that like, but we actually did it. There's always that joke about modern art. Oh, I could have done that. Yeah, but you didn't. Like, you could have put a line on a piece, but you didn't. You could have emailed whoever, but you didn't. So just do it. Not to sound lucky, but
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, actually. Yeah. So our third and final question, this is a bit of a cheesy one, but what would you say if you could visit your former self at the start of your career? Yeah.
I would say take more risks. Try and plan small. Plan your first business or your first campaign or your first job as an attempt to maximize it as much as possible until it literally falls apart. Like, I've been spending the past 4 years treading water in a business because I didn't want to get to the edge of it to see where it would fall apart. And now, through a global pandemic, I'm like, shit, this would fall apart if X, Y, and Z were gone. So let's just go for it. And now we're getting set to like basically reinvent our business. And I was like, shit, I wish I'd have done that in 2017 instead of in 2020, when I would have had a lot more energy to go after it. So yeah, just treat everything as a test or a challenge or like a puzzle, like to solve. You know, I'm sure it's easier to do that in entrepreneurship than it is in business when you're working for somebody else. But just max it out, because you learn a lot about yourself and you learn about what's possible, really.
Yeah, I think I would say to build a brand on core values. So obviously you might think, oh, a music festival is not a brand or whatever, but it is, in the sense that an event or events that I'd done previously would just literally be about the artist. So it was based on somebody else and somebody else's talent, rather than like building on what we were about and trying to create an experience through what we were delivering. So I think that that was what then led for us to be successful. So build your brand and like really iron out what you're trying to do and make that different to what other people are doing. And if you're doing that, then you can set yourself apart. And say someone's got more money than you, so they can have bigger artists, or somebody's got more money, they've got more opportunities. You can be the smaller fish, but you can slip through the stream and actually be more successful through creating something more valuable.
Mine would just be, you don't have to do everything yourself. You know, if you're in a business, there are other people around you to help you. Sometimes I feel like my ambition can get in my own way sometimes. So yeah, just I needed to be a bit more collaborative with what I was doing. But my favorite advice that got me through everything would be my dad's advice, which is work smart, not hard. Because like there'd be days where I'd be like working 12 hours. He'd be like, just why are you doing that? Like, you need to be working smarter than you are. It's really important to take a step back and realize when sometimes you're just being inefficient, but you still feel like you're working hard.
Yeah, that was really interesting to hear from you all about that discussion. I think it's all quite different takes on things as well, but there's a few things that overlap, which is really interesting to hear about. So we'll move on now to our Q&A section. So I'll just flip on to the Q&A bit bottom. So I'll just go from the top question down, and then if you have any more questions, feel free to just fire them in now. Just pop them in, we'll get to them hopefully in a minute. So our first question is for Esme. So how did you get to the stage to interview these business heads for your dissertation? From experience, emails can be so easily sidelined. Any tips for standing out?
I mean, I talk about the emails and the responses that I got, but there are probably lots of emails that I did send that didn't get a response. As I say, I think that it's really important to have properly worded emails, to have good communication skills. That's like so important. If that isn't your strong suit, get someone else to check over emails and that kind of stuff. But another like really good tip is that I reached out to someone in a group in LinkedIn, Phil Brown, who I'm still talk to now, who basically gave me all my connections within influencer marketing and gave me introductions. So you kind of just need to find like one nice person within that industry, and often they'll be like, oh, I've got a friend who, you know, you could also speak to. When you're interviewing one person, ask if they've got another couple of people for you to speak to as well, and just see, you know, if you can push it a little bit further while still being like respectful.
Yeah, perfect. So the next question we have is kind of related to, I guess, what you were talking about, Tom, about in uni and you kind of took a risk. So did any of you think about giving up at some point? If yes, how did you overcome it?
No. I kind of, if I failed, I don't know why, but I would feel like I had to then, like, the money I would lose would put me in even more of a hole. So I would have to dig myself out even more. So I kind of had failure as not an option. Obviously, when you fail though, you definitely feel really low. I think that in business, the sort of the successes are great, but the lows are really low, and you definitely feel like they hit you hard, and you think, oh god. Like, I mean, there's been times that like really bad things have happened with our events, and times that we've lost loads of money, and like it's just you do sit there and question like, oh my god, is there any point in doing this anymore? But then you just have to, you do get over that, I think, with time. You know, in a week's time, then somehow, I don't know what it is within you, but the fire then burns again, and you're back out there trying to do it again. So I think it's just, you have to not let it get to you too much so that you completely write it off. You just keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably the opposite. I think about giving up every single day. There's not one point in a day that looks like, fuck, this would be a lot easier if I wasn't doing this, that, the other thing. But I think that comes when you're at the edge of your comfort zone. Yeah, like not. I get the like. There's been financial stresses and stuff like that. Like I completely see where Tom comes from. But for me, it's like, you know, why do I want to give up? Is it because it's easier to do that than to do what needs to be done? And then that's when you check yourself and you kind of say, no, because there's something that is driving you that you're not really in control of. It's almost like subconscious, like it's moving you in a direction. So you'll probably catch yourself over the next wee while or the rest of your career wanting to give up. But then if you do, then try and have the mindfulness or the state of mind to stand back and say, is it because it's difficult? And if it's because it's difficult, then I guess, like Esme says, then work smart at it and not hard at it. And then you might find less and less you're wanting to give up.
Yeah, I don't think I don't get all the risks of running a business. I have nice people above me that get to take all that risk and get to take all that worry about giving up. So when I wanted to give up, I just went away and took a week off and then came back. So I think that's one of the, I think it'd be quite nice to have that stress sometimes of being an entrepreneur and starting your own business, but not just yet.
Amazing. So the third question that we have is for Tom again. So what was the role you had during your internship at Saatchi?
I can't remember what the role was called, but I mean, I was picking blue tack off walls and then one day going around interviewing people. So I was a total dog's body. So it wasn't anything special. And also I remember at the time that when I was doing it, I was 23, a qualified stockbroker, and everyone else was like 17, like it's still in school. So I was totally like the total lemon in the group. And people were always like, what are you doing? And I'd be like picking blue tack off walls thinking, what am I doing here? This is the worst. But then again, there was other parts of it that were great. It just depended on what day, like you just got sent to do jobs for whoever was working there. And when you're working at like a big company like that, obviously you just want to impress. So whatever anyone will ask you to do, you'll pick that blue tack as good as you can. And yeah, I can't remember what the role was called though.
So the fourth question is from an anonymous person. So what advice do you give to students currently seeking placements? So if we go to Esme for that one.
Yeah, I mean, so I've done like full-on placement years. I did a placement year at IBM. That was psychometric testing and rubbish. But I think currently seeking placements, try and get as much experience as you can. If you can do like stuff on the side, if you can try a few different placements, that I think that really gives you a lot of help, because I like to think of placements as like trial jobs before you graduate, to work out if you actually want to work in that space and to give you an actual understanding of how those businesses work. It just makes you seem a lot more intelligent when you come in somewhere and you understand how an agency is structured and how business works. But yeah, I think also just reaching out to people, the amount of just random emails I'd send just asking people to just hear me out for a couple of minutes. Yeah, I think that's it.
If it were me, like I didn't do any placements during uni, so like don't take this as any sort of advice, but I would seek out somewhere where you can legitimately make a difference in the time that you're there, especially if it's something that kind of is along your own values or interests or passions. Like as much as an IBM placement would be amazing, and Esme's in a much better position to talk about that than I would be. What are you achieving by working through for them? Do you know what I mean? Like what is their goal like to do, and how are you differentiating your own life versus a potential cog in a wheel that somebody else could come in and do, you know, as well. So for me, it would be search out something, especially if, like I'm against working for free. Like I do not like, and that's just from an entrepreneurial point of view, but also I think it's a very classist system. I think unpaid internships should be abolished, because they're the privilege of the wealthy who get to not care about that. So, but if you have to, or you have to, you know, work for a pittance, make sure it's something that you genuinely care about. You know, make sure it's not just something for the CV. And I think this would just stand you in good stead for the rest of your life. Make sure it's something that's actually quite meaningful.
So the next question we have is for yourself, Alan. So it can be a challenge to bring attention to argue the benefits of investing in products linked to charity and non-profit. So how did you address these?
So can you repeat that? It's a challenge to what, sorry?
To bring attention to argue the benefits of investing in products linked to charity and non-profit.
That might be a way to understand it. I actually think it's different. I think we've made far more outsized noise in our very short time in the craft beer industry because of our charity link than in spite of it. If you're authentic and you genuinely do what you say you do and you give proof of it, then I actually think it builds a cachet and a moat around your business that is completely differentiated from the marketplace. We did not come into the craft beer because there wasn't enough good craft beer around. Do you know what I mean? And I think it'd be disingenuous to do that. I think we came into craft beer because we recognize the power of beer. Like people care about it, people drink it. It's one of the most commonly consumed products on earth in different forms, obviously, but it's pretty much close to water in terms of its consumption. So we came in to say, imagine if you put this in a positive direction, like what could you achieve? And we're 4 years old and we don't have a brewery, but we've collaborated with we hold like the world record for collaborations. Like we've done 200 and something in the past 4 years. And I think that's because we have a purpose. Now that was charity in many respects. We're moving beyond that so that yes, we do the good work that we continue to do, but we're actually more about people. We're about creating like an inclusive, welcoming environment for people to enjoy beer and for that to then have a power to do other things. So I actually think it's, if you have a business that doesn't have a tacked on charity thing, like you're doing it for the right reason, it's authentic and it's different, then you're ahead of a lot of your competition, for sure.
Yeah. Sorry if I can just jump in there. One of the things I was saying before about advice for your former self, and that what Alan said there, like he's built something purely on like his core values and his beliefs and his story, obviously, of the fact that he drank dirty water as well. Like he's actually got there's so much to his business that has so many strands, and that's why, like I believe anyway, that it's so successful. So that's like just shows how like having like a real richness and like backstory to it and belief that people will buy into.
So our next question we have is from Kevin. This is for yourself, Tom. So how vital are connections within the events industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think that connections are vital in any business or any job, really. Obviously, like it will help with whatever you're looking to do, but you have to build your own connections. So like I started out at the bottom and worked my way up. So yeah, it's just the same with I imagine with Alan and Esme. I imagine that when they started out, they didn't have connections either, and you just have to make your own.
Yeah, so I guess it's the same with most industries, as you said, because yeah, obviously in marketing and things like that, you'd also need connections. So would you agree with that, Esme? Would you?
Yeah, definitely. Like the connections. So for example, when I had my dissertation and I finished it, I found out that Harry was going to be talking at an event. So I reached out to the organizer of the event. I was like, I cannot afford a ticket. Like, no, can't afford one, but can you do me a student one? So she gave me a student ticket. It was like £100. Like, it emptied my bank account, and I showed up with like my dissertation CV in hand. Hi, please may I have a job, please? Thank you very much. And that's how I got my job at Go, like from following up with them. But the person that sold me that student ticket, I still talk to her like almost every week. And now next week I'm speaking at the event that I bought a ticket for. So like it comes around in cycles of like you build those connections, they do you do them, and then like you end up building this really great network. And I think that's really important. Like LinkedIn is the best tool like ever. Just
adding to that, like the events industry, one of the things I didn't actually really touch on is that we used to run an event from 2012 or 2013 to 2016 called the Scottish Business Awards, and it brought everybody in the business community together. And you know, when you're smart, you can kind of play off that, you know what I mean? If you've got the gatekeeper's email, you've got marketing manager, you've got, you know, blah blah. And when it comes to like Tom stuff, like whenever I go to fly, like, you know, especially the open air stuff, like you get to see everyone from, you know, that's where people go to enjoy themselves, you know, and you can make casual networking there that actually can be much stronger, and you get to you know, make connections that are outside of a workplace environment where it seems like it could be transactional. So yeah, I think if the power of a network is enormous, and I think everyone here would say that if they didn't have it and they didn't build it and they didn't try to cultivate it, then they would not be speaking to everybody else here today.
The next question we have is from an anonymous person. So basically, if you've been applying it to industry placements and jobs and constantly being rejected over a long period of time, do you think it's time to move on, or how do you choose when what to do with the rejections?
I tried to get into the water, charity and governmental sector for a year and got rejected from every single one of them. And there's a funny story that basically Defid, who told me I wasn't good enough, ended up inviting me back to talk about water and, you know, innovative ways to tackle water poverty about 2 years later. So if people are rejecting you, like, just take it in and say, if that's what you genuinely want to do, go and do some small scale experiment that proves that you could do it just as good as everybody else, and then they might be inviting you back.
Yeah, I do think it's a question, like, why, like, I am such a person for asking for feedback on stuff and just being like, even if it's a journalist that doesn't want something from me or like whatever, I'm just like, okay, but just tell me why. And then even if it's like a sentence, then you can have a little look at yourself, peer review as well, get other people to look through your content, get other people to look through what you're writing, get a mentor. I've reached out to loads of like business people before and just been like, can I just have coffee with you and just have a chat about like your life and have these kind of conversations that we're having now one-on-one, and they're really valuable. And if you're buying someone a coffee, you're surprised how much they like to talk sometimes.
Great. So our next question is from Emma. So how did you find the confidence to reach out to people for jobs or support in your business? So I know you mentioned the constant emailing and things like that. Like, so how did you find the confidence, I guess, to do that?
Make me sound like I'm a pest. I made myself sound like that. A little bit. Like, you kind of just have to. You do have to think that you are trying to add value to them. Like, you are trying to bring some value to them as much as you're asking it from them. But just try and be respectful and just try and be clear and concise and not waste people's time. And I think once you do that, well, that's more probably about reining yourself in than building the confidence to do it. Because I think that I'd rather have someone just receive my email than just not do anything.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And you go, Alan. You want to go? Okay. Yeah, I think you just have to believe in yourself. I mean, obviously, there'll be jobs that you're applying for that you're unqualified for. So you might think, oh, I can't believe in myself because I'm going for this. But I mean, that's why they're advertising for those jobs if they're entry level positions. So, you know, you got to also think that these companies or businesses, whatever, they also need you. I mean, much like when I started out, I was thinking all these clubs are telling me, no, we don't want you to have your night, but they also need people in the clubs to drink the booze. So you add value as much as they add value. So these businesses are going to want young people to join them because young people have creative minds and can add value in ways that you don't think. So if you're getting no's, don't take that negatively. Just keep trying because there will be companies that will want you and need you.
My advice would be like the human touch. Like, most people are, when they're not stressed with work, probably nice, you know, probably decent people. So do ask them for their advice, ask them for their feedback in advance. You know, I one day I want to be like you, right? So how do I go about doing that? I think is a good one. But also, like, be as precise in your ask as possible. I don't think people are too busy to read emails. I think people are lazy. It's the too long didn't read like analysis on Twitter. Like, just be like, I want to achieve X. Can you help me do it? I think is perfect, because if I see an email, which could be like the best amazing thing in the world if I really took time to read it, but it doesn't clearly articulate itself to me, then I'm thinking, does this person really know what they're about? If you can distill it into, you know, a few sentences or a paragraph that captures somebody's imagination, then I think you'll be surprised at how many people are prepared to help you go out of their way to do it.
So our second last question that we have, so what advice would you give to students who are uncertain about their abilities and degrees in the future? And have you ever felt restless around peers at uni or in life in general, who are maybe achieving more than you?
All the time. And it happens, it doesn't go away. You just have to deal with it.
Take it as an advantage. There are people around you that are better than you. Fantastic, learn from them. Like, you're not going to get better if you're the smartest person in the room. Mm-hmm. Go into a room where you're the dumbest person and try and get better.
Yeah, and like, use those people in your network as well, like what you're talking about beforehand. Like, stay in touch with your peers at university, because a lot of them might end up going into high-flying jobs, that later in life you might start a business, that you might have a connection there. So just keep your black book of contacts always open and stay in touch with as many people as possible.
Great. So it's our last question now. So have you made any investments in like property, stock, shares, other than your businesses?
I tried to get into Bitcoin, but I mean, that was too late. No, I mean, I've got a flat, but that's like, I'm not investing in anything, especially now as well with the pandemic and the fact that events aren't on. I'm in a pretty gregarious situation where I'm trying to just save money and survive. So no, not at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I try to be as liquid as possible right now. Like Tom was saying, I had lots of spread bet investments in like ESG trackers before the shit just started collapsing, and I was like pressing the withdraw button like loads of times to make sure it was done, and I got out just a little bit before everything went tits up. But what I do love doing, and it's not like I'm some sort of venture capitalist, but I love going on to like crowdfunding platforms for businesses that I genuinely think are just cool and you can learn from. So I most recently invested in a guy that both Tom and I know is setting up an app to help people save for their first home. So everyone here will experience that, and it's called Nude. I'm not suggesting that you go and invest because your capital is at risk, but I just love the fact that I was like, imagine if that worked. Imagine if that worked. Is that worth a couple of £100 of mine just to see if that would work? And knowing the entrepreneurs behind it, what if they exit and make me twice, 5 times, 10,000 money? That would just be a holiday. I can pay for a holiday, and maybe one day I'll get to the stage where I can make bigger investments. But if you are conscious that there's other people out there constantly asking for money to do things different or better, it's actually fun. It's like a little bit of a game for yourself. Some people like putting the fiver on the football. Some people like putting the fiver on a startup, and that's kind of where I would look to do it, as long as you can afford to lose the money.
I invested in that as well, actually, Alan. Good shout.
What about you, Esme?
I'm going to do my first investment then. What was that, Luke? No, to be fair, I don't have the funds to be investing in things. I'm still, saving up for the first house and that kind of stuff. So the most I try and do is buy from independents as much as possible and do that kind of little bit of good in the world. That's about as much as stocks. Although I think I still earned some from when I worked at Tesco's when I was like 16. So I should check in on that. Could be worth some money.
But one thing I'd say is investments are not the preserve of the rich. Like, you can invest from as little as a couple of quid in stuff, you know, at the start, like money boxes and things like that. So I don't want anyone to think that they can't invest because, you know, they've only got, you know.
For me as an educator,
one thing I'll say.
I
totally. No, I just want to put that in.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for answering those questions, and I hope your question was answered. I'm sorry if I didn't get to it. I have just gone through all the ones at the Q&A section, so hopefully yours was answered. Well, a huge thank you to all three of our speakers, so Tom, Esme and Alan, for taking your time out your day to join us. I'm sure, well, I learned a lot personally, so I'm sure everybody else, all our attendees, will have learned a lot as well. I'd also like to say a thank you to both of our committees at Marketing Society and Event Society for helping organise this event. And thank you to Cameron and Brodie, who are literally through behind me in another room, making sure everything is flipped between and everything runs smoothly. Yeah, so thank you to everyone that's attended as well. As I say, I hope that you've learned a lot from this, and keep an eye out on our social media channels as well for more information on events like these. So both our @ is SMS Napier and events @ is Ed's Nap Events. So yeah, check those out. And well, thank you very much for joining, and have a lovely day.
Cheers, guys. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.